Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a highly precise, absolutely crucial administrative topic, case management and record keeping. Now, since you already have a solid understanding of assembly courts, court clerks, trial juries, and the fundamental principles of due process, we're just going to bypass the basics. Instead, we're going to methodically walk through the procedural life cycle of a case file, examining the rigorous standards required to document, track, and officially archive these actions. Let's get started. So here's our roadmap for this process. We're covering 5 main steps. First, understanding case management. Second, creating the case file. Third, evidence, witnesses, and notices. Fourth, establishing public records. And finally, accountability and best practices. All right, let's jump right into part 1, understanding case management. We're starting right at the initiation phase to see what this actually entails within the system. So what exactly is a record? Well, the source material defines the very concept of a record in highly physical terms. We aren't just talking about keeping your receipts organized in a shoebox here. According to the texts, records form the foundational evidence required to secure and officially affirm one's capacity, identity, and standing, and they tie directly to actual land, soil, and people. Simply put, without a properly established record, all subsequent steps in a court process lack their necessary foundation. It's the bedrock of the whole operation. Moving on to part 2, creating the case file. Now that we know why records matter so much, the next logical step is learning the precise procedures for building a brand new case file from scratch. The source material actually outlines an explicit 3-step procedure for initiating a case. Step 1, a trespass occurs. Step 2 is absolutely crucial. A witness testimony in the form of an affidavit is created stating the facts and containing the evidence. Finally, step 3 culminates in bringing this compiled evidence directly to the court clerk and filing a new case form. You literally cannot skip these steps. They have to be documented honorably. And let me tell you, case creation requires an incredible level of detail. Strict adherence to formatting requirements is mandatory. The text mandate using specific highlighters to denote different jurisdictions on your court documents. For example, you'd use a yellow marker for upper and lowercase text representing one jurisdiction and an orange marker for names or entities written in all caps, which denotes a Roman, municipal, or maritime jurisdiction. This visual separation isn't just for show, it is treated as a vital part of the official court record. Furthermore, the filing requirements are highly specific. Procedures mandate precise docket numbering systems just to identify the cases. You'll also frequently see requirements for names and dates to be written out in red ink. But perhaps most importantly, and this is a big one, there is a heavy reliance on the United States Postal Service. Using USPS registered mail or certified mail with return receipts is an absolute must. Why? Because it ensures proper tracking, delivery verification, and an indisputable paper trail of every single submission. Okay, Section 3, Evidence, Witnesses, and Notices. As we move into the compilation phase, a case file must accurately capture all those supporting evidence and witness testimonies while ensuring proper notices are served. During this phase, it's not just a single clerk working alone in a vacuum, it's more like a coordinated team effort. Various committees and the juries themselves actively coordinate hearing schedules and manage the flow of physical evidence. Whether it's the court venue committee securing the locations or the session committee keeping the actual proceedings in order, there's a structured team ensuring facts are presented clearly and the rules of due process are strictly adhered to. Now, communication is the absolute cornerstone of this process, which brings us to this specific legal maxim. Notice to principals is notice to agents. Notice to agents is notice to principals. The source texts frequently utilize this concept to ensure all parties are adequately served. When you're dealing with these complex administrative frameworks, establishing that proper due process and court notices have actually been delivered to the relevant parties is an absolute prerequisite before any judgment can even be rendered. And when it comes to the witnesses themselves, any records added to the case must be meticulously documented. A simple verbal claim? Yeah, that isn't going to cut it. It requires an autographed affidavit. It should include physical facts, too, things like correspondence, photographs, or video evidence. And most importantly, it must be officially witnessed and verified by either a state notary or an assembly recording secretary. Without that verification, it won't be considered valid evidence by the court. Which brings us to Section 4, Establishing Public Records. As the case file matures and all your evidence is compiled, we hit the formalization phase. This is where documents must be properly published and permanently archived. The source material could not possibly be clearer on this point. Creating a public record is key. The texts strongly emphasize that establishing a public record is the primary mechanism to rebut legal presumptions and really secure your official standing. Think about it. Without this step, all the paperwork you've just generated remains private, which means it's effectively invisible to the broader administrative system. So how do we practically apply this? Well, there are multiple valid methods for establishing this public record. Your options range from internal recording offices, like the Assembly Land Recording Office or the International Land Recording Publishing Service. But interestingly enough, the sources note there is no special magic to the venue itself. A public record can even be established by publication in a standard everyday public newspaper, provided the publication is sustained for an appropriate period of time and has a reasonable distribution. Once it's published, the archiving procedures take over. The notary or recording secretary stamp serves as the literal anchor for authentication here. Record keepers are then tasked with distributing stamped, secured copies to preserve the file. Typically, a complete copy goes back to the juror, one copy is kept by the state jural assembly, and another is kept for the county recorder. This kind of redundancy secures the peace and ensures the proper functioning of the entire record system. And that leads us right into Section 5, accountability and best practices. In the final phase of the case lifecycle, we really need to examine the severe consequences of common mistakes and review the overarching best practices for transparency. Meticulous tracking of time is absolutely required. The legal and administrative frameworks described here operate on very strict clocks. For instance, you might have exactly 10 days to return an indemnity bond to avoid dishonor, 15 days for a reply brief, or 30 days for an answering brief. Failing to respond to notices or return documents within these specific timeframes doesn't just delay a case, it often results in administrative defaults, and that essentially means acceptance of the terms, simply because you failed to object in time. The clock is always ticking. Because these administrative errors carry such significant legal consequences, the source texts stress strict adherence to specific best practices. Fill forms out very carefully. Mistakes carry heavy weight. If you're issuing bonds, verify your political status first. The text actually notes you often need at least 3 people in correct status to complete a bond. Always, always track communications via USPS registered or certified mail, and physically keep copies of all those newspaper publications for your own archives. You can never be too careful. Well, we've covered a whole lot of ground today, tracing the rigorous path of case files from the initial trespass claim all the way to the final archived public record. Effective case management and record keeping preserves accountability, transparency, and the integrity of the court process. Ultimately, as we review the entire life cycle of these documents, how will you apply these rigorous standards to ensure the accuracy and the power of your own records? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.